Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Real Sport 101 proudly brings to you the Caps, Locks, and Chair Shots podcast! And as always, if you're not down with us, we got 2 words for ya. Keep listening. Now, before we jump in with who we have here today, a few explanations are needed. Due to his mention of Zach Sabre Jr., and that will be the last time his name is mentioned this week, the real Danny D is on a 1-week suspension. As such, we also have a change to the regular lineup. Bino Machino has been future endeavored by the Caps, Locks, and Chair Shots podcast. He will only be featured sporadically as he gives us live reports from indie wrestling anywhere around the globe. As for right now, once again, we like to wish Bino Machino good luck in his future endeavors. But on with the show. Introducing a new contributor who will be a regular contributor to this podcast. You can find him as the Broken Comedian. His name is the one, the Alex. Say hi to the people, Alex.
Oh, what you gonna do, brothers?
And the muscle of the podcast comes to us live from the Philippines. He is a future MMA fighter. We know him simply as the one, the only, the Jaime. Say hi to the people, Jaime.
What's up, wrestling fans? I'm back. 100% born and raised. Here I go.
Alrighty. Sorry for the nerdiness, folks. You gotta remember, wrestling is our lives. But on with the show, and since we're starting off, let's start off with the beginning of the wrestling week, and that is Monday Night Raw. Big story out of Monday Night Raw, of course, Braun Strowman. Alex, I'm going to start with you. We know how Jaime feels about Mr. Strowman. What are your feelings toward the monster that is the former Wyatt family member?
I love Braun Strowman. He is awesome.
Succinct, nice, to the point. Jaime, what did you think of the whole Braun Strowman Rampage ordeal that happened Monday?
Well, the match was good, but I already expected something to happen. I was surprised it did not happen earlier, but I already expected something like that was going to happen. We were treated to such.
It was pretty obvious when the video boards that normally encapsulate 3 sides of the ring were absent for the entire show. You kind of expected it to happen. Speaking of the ring collapsing, this is the 3rd time on WWE programming the ring has collapsed due to a superplex, and Big Show was involved in all 3. Twice he was the victim, once he was the aggressor. Now,
can we officially call that the Big Show spot now?
You know what? It makes sense. Brock Lesnar did it to him once on SmackDown. Mark Henry, for some reason, they did it with them, and now Braun Strowman. It's probably what Big Show's going to be known for, other than being the favorite in every Battle Royal and Royal Rumble he's ever been in, and winning once.
Has he ever won a Battle Royal? I don't remember.
He won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
So, Jaime, what else happened on Monday Night Raw? What caught your eye from the 3-hour Wrestle extravaganza?
Cesaro versus Jeff Hardy.
Very true, absolutely. Heck of a match, and definitely one that we thought we would never see after the Hardys disembarked from the WWE shows. Go more into that. Tell us what really brought that match out for you, other than the fact it made every fanboy cream his pants when it was announced.
It's kind of a passing of the torch from the Hardys back in the Attitude Era to another athletic tag team like Sheamus and Cesaro, because both are powerhouses, both can fly. It's more of an evolution kind of thing. And the Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro match is entertaining, a lot of acrobatics, a lot of power moves from Cesaro as usual. And I'm actually surprised that each of the partners at ringside did not interfere for the match, or did not play any factor. So it's like a babyface versus babyface matchup for the championship at Payback.
Absolutely, and it's one of the few times we've seen a tag team match happen on feature television that didn't feature some form of interference from one person or another. Let's jump to you, Alex. What was the one thing that stood out to you from Monday night?
I'm just gonna have to say the Braun Strowman Big Show match. Was Kalisto getting tossed into the trash this week? Because that would be the other thing.
Strowman on his Rampage actually destroyed the Golden Truth, and it's nice to see those guys on TV again, even though they're getting the crap beat out of them. And yes, Kalisto was the one that was being taken out into the dumpster, if you will. What did y'all think about the shoulder block that Big Show delivered to Strowman into the garage door that really didn't hurt Strowman, but the holy crap, that just happened look on Strowman's face when the camera cut to him.
They're trying to book Big Show as like an equals to or an already destructive Braun Strowman, in my opinion. That's why they did that. If you have noticed, I think it's the very first move that Braun Strowman ever sold.
That is a valid point. What did you think of it, Alex?
It was interesting. You know, I think Big Show getting in shape recently has really helped this not look comical. Because if Big Show was still, I hate to say it, but the fat guy, you know, this would almost be cartoony.
Hey, that's prejudiced against all fat guys everywhere, and I take offense. Anyway, let's move on to the whole show. At least I understood it to be. It was pretty much Braun Strowman and Big Show, and then it seemed a lot like Sunday Night Heat. And a lot of that transferred into Tuesday night as well, and we'll get to that here in a second. I was thoroughly not impressed with Raw as a whole, especially if you remove the Braun Strowman Big Show spot. It was a very lackluster Raw.
Can't agree more. You see, it's like full of segments, and the matches weren't, except maybe for the Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro, but the rest of the card wasn't that spectacular for Monday Night Raw.
I completely agree. They had a lot of momentum going into Monday night, especially coming off the surprising Superstar Shakedown, and they just demolished it. Alex, how did you feel about Monday night?
I didn't see the whole show. I mean, first of all, I watched the Hulu version because I'm not going to sit through 3 hours of Raw. But I didn't even watch the whole Hulu version. But what I did see was pretty much run-of-the-mill Raw. It was just some stuff happened, and then it was over.
That's pretty much the way Raw's been for the last 6 years almost. Up right about when Edge and John Cena kind of went their separate ways and DX went their separate ways, Raw really went into the tank. And we thought we would see them pull it out with the Superstar shakeup, but it never happened. And it's something that I feel the WWE is going to be wasting as we go into the future, as far as all this momentum off of one show and then completely demolishing it the next week. Now, speaking of momentum, sometimes it helps to have it, sometimes you don't need it. And then you go into a match where anybody could be a number one contender. Anybody. Literally anybody. It doesn't matter if you're part of a three-man pathetic excuse for a band. It doesn't matter if you're a former world champion, a tag team champion. Apparently it doesn't matter anymore. And we go to SmackDown, and we get two number one contenders crowned. Let's start with the first one, and that was the SmackDown Women's number one contender, Charlotte. She wins her match against Naomi, earns her title shot for next week. What are y'all's thoughts on Charlotte?
It's exactly what I thought would happen. Charlotte's getting immediately pushed into the title picture, and it's, you know, it was predictable. It's interesting to me that Charlotte is getting her title match on just next week's SmackDown and not on the pay-per-view.
Very true. Jaime, what were your thoughts on the match in total, and does Charlotte deserve getting a title match this soon?
Well, she's the franchise player of the women's division. She's the hottest signee from Monday Night Raw to transfer to SmackDown. So, pretty much makes sense to give her the title shot. What surprises me is that was she put in a match with Naomi, and she's going to face Naomi again next week instead of pitting two deserving contenders against each other for this week in order to see who faces Naomi next week, regardless if it's a pay-per-view match or a title match on SmackDown Live.
Who would you have put her up against, though? Like, who is there really on SmackDown? Mickie James? No, she was put on Raw, wasn't she?
She was put on Raw.
Yeah, so who would you really have had her faced?
Well, I think that in large part goes and just shows how weak that SmackDown women's division is. I mean, Carmella, for all of her spelling prowess, and James Ellsworth, nowhere near on par with Charlotte. You know, Natty maybe, but maybe it's just me. Natty's come off more acting like a high school child than being a real professional wrestler.
Natalia.
Yeah, exactly. What was going on with that segment about, oh, we should talk about this, and then it was one shoulder bump and a mean look from the three of them, and that was it. Jaime, how did you feel about that? Is that something that you liked?
To be honest, that part I found it too dull. So that's it? When I saw that segment, I was like, that's it? You all joined forces to do something you're trying to conspire against Charlotte Flair, but when Charlotte was done with her match, she was like, it's like, that's it? You just stare at her, do anything?
There should have been something. Maybe this would have been a spot for the slime ball that is James Ellsworth to come in and do something. Even kick her in the back of the leg and make her trip. Something better than just, we're going to be mean girls now. That's what it came off as. It came off as the WWE trying to rip off crappy 90s chick flicks. Let's move on to the second number one contender. Nobody saw this coming. People still can't believe this is coming. It completely makes sense from a business standpoint. But Jinder freaking Mahal is the number one contender for it's the WWE title on SmackDown, correct?
The WWE World Heavyweight Championship, yeah.
Yes.
He is the number one contender. Alex, let's start with you. You're the new face. Let's hear what you think about the former 3MB member.
A lot of people are angry about this. I've seen people really angry, amusing to me. Because first, people will say, like, oh, they should be putting new people into the main event picture. And then they actually put someone new into the main event picture. And it's they get enraged. It's silly to me.
Well, it's one of them things where they put somebody new in there, it just wasn't the right new person.
It wasn't an internet darling.
I've seen a bunch of people, why wasn't Finn Balor put in there? Because it doesn't make any sense. Jinder makes sense. Let's go with you, Jaime. You're a person of color. I mean, you would be a minority here in this country. Does Jinder being a number one contender mean something to you?
From an ethnic sense, no, but based on Jinder Mahal's career, I'm actually surprised that they did it now rather than before when he initially debuted. You see, he did not even contend for mid-card titles back then. You see, there was a lot of promise when he debuted as the Great Khali's brother-in-law. Am I correct?
I believe so. Brother-in-law or nephew, yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of promise there, but just after that Great Khali feud, they just focused more on putting a turban on and putting a robe on him and giving him some sloppy matches till 3MB came, and 3MB did not do anything of significance except jobbing. So I think this pretty much is his time for me. Not more in the ethnic sense, because guys like Finn Balor, guys like Shinsuke Nakamura can make it big. Why can't somebody like Jinder do? He looks the part.
He looks like a walking vein.
That's true too, but back to what was saying about it makes sense financially. Stories are coming out of Stamford, Connecticut and out of India that say that the WWE is opening a major branch of their corporation in India, trying to build that Indian audience. That's 1.1 billion people live on the subcontinent, and they're trying to build people. And it makes sense to, if you want to build fans, to give them a national hero to build around. The Great Khali flopped. Was there a worse match on a pay-per-view than the match he had with Batista in that Punjabi prison cell, I think is what they called it? Jinder is somebody that can maybe reverse that stereotypical trend of being an Indian wrestler and maybe actually do something. And one thing that not a lot of people are pointing out, we haven't had a real ethnic bad guy that's been a legit bad guy since maybe Muhammad Hassan, and we'll get to him here in a little bit. But he could be that one, screw America, screw you guys, screw Canada, even though he's Canadian, screw all you guys, you're not Indian, whatever. He could be that one guy going all the way back to, the Iron Sheik or any great Canadian heel, and Muhammad Hassan that we haven't had since 2005. Alex, what are your thoughts on, do you think he can fill that void?
I don't think that that's even a void that needs to be filled. Why do you need the anti-American? Isn't that a bit... First of all, isn't it a bit played out? Second of all, it's are we really culturally at a point where people are going to boo someone just because they said, "Oh, America sucks"?
It doesn't matter. It's a tradition. It's been around since the beginning of time. The anti-American sentiment has been around forever. The same way as we've had the Superman has been around forever. Whether it's been Roman Reigns, John Cena, Hulk Hogan.
Sure, but the Superman role is that's something that that's something that makes sense to fill, because Superman is the cornerstone. He's always been there, and he's always going to be there. You can have your Batmans, you can have your Wonder Womans, but Superman was the first, and he's always going to be there because he's Superman. But the anti-American heel. That wasn't the first heel. It's not the most interesting heel.
It was pretty freaking close to being the first heel. It was pretty close. If you look at the tapes back to, the 40s and the 50s when Lou Thez was having his workouts broadcast on the DuPont network in prime time when there was only 3 channels, the guy he was going up against was a foreigner. Edouard Carpentier ran down America being that he was Canadian, and that was one of the hottest feuds the NWA has ever had, and that was in the 50s. You go through time, and there has been anti-American feuds the entire way. But yeah, the anti-American thing has been going on forever, and it should continue because that's one way to draw cheap heat. You get the big pop from saying, hey, live right here in blah, blah, blah. And you get the same thing from saying, everybody here in Hoboken, New Jersey is a bunch of inbred redneck pieces of garbage, and so is most of America. You're going to get the boos. It's perfect.
My question is, do crowds really respond like that anymore? Like, if you listen to a crowd in LA or New York or any of these big cities, these quote-unquote smarky cities, do they really pop or boo for that?
I think we're going to find out in the next coming months. I guarantee you we find out in the next coming months. International flavor here. You're on the other side of the world from us. How is it received when you have that anti-American, anti-Canadian heel come along? Now, we saw it with Canadians where Bret Hart was, screw America, I'm all about Canada, and he was regaled in Canada and hated in America. You being international, how does that affect your view of somebody when they run down the USA in favor of their home country?
If you're on the foreigner side, it's cheap heat. Like, if you cut a patriotic promo about your country that's not America, automatically you get booed by these Americans who are proud of their country. But if you do not mind it, let's say, for example, Muhammad Hassan did not focus more on the promos or even the segments. If the segments were not foreign related, it's cheap heat. If you throw a promo about your own country in a country as patriotic as America, where everyone's proud to be Americans. So, same goes, regardless of where you're from.
Let's talk about Muhammad Hassan for a second. He was the hottest heel in wrestling at the time. 2005 rolls around. I believe it was against Hulk Hogan. He sends a masked group of people down to basically take him out.
That's The Undertaker.
It was The Undertaker, excuse me. 2 days before that, London gets bombed. That's the last we see of Muhammad Hassan thanks to UPN. My question now is, given the rise of the Islamic State, given the rise of dissent against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the divide that's going down most of the world over how they feel about what's going on in the Middle East. Alex, my question is to you, would Muhammad Hassan work now? And if Jinder Mahal took over that character, given his Indo-Canadian heritage and being from as close to the Middle East as he is, if he took over that character, would he work now?
Well, it depends entirely on how they presented him. Muhammad Hassan would not work in 2017, mostly because we're not fresh off the 9/11 ordeal. It's been 16 years. Most people have either forgotten or can't remember 9/11 in the first place. So if you presented him just as like, oh, I'm from the Middle East, so therefore I'm evil, no, that absolutely wouldn't work. Especially when you have the whole PC, politically correct, you shouldn't hate Muslims crowd. That would tout against that thing. But if you presented him as more of a nuanced character, like something you might see in Lucha Underground, maybe it might work.
Yeah, I think if Hassan was to come back today, you would see something truly unique where he could be in California, which is largely liberal, and maybe even get supported, and then go to a place like New York, which is not that way, and maybe even get shot. Like, just the divide that goes on between that. It would be much the same way as John Cena. Northeast, hero. Southwest, you can't hear the guy talk because he's being told he sucks so much. It could see something like that just on a much larger scale, and I think Jinder has a chance to be on par with that. Jaime, you're doing something on Jinder Mahal as part of a piece, and we'll get to that piece here in a second, as far as what could have been. What are your thoughts? Could Mahal make it in today's landscape?
Well, he's getting heat for being a person of color. He speaks about his ethnicity, but lately, no, that was his first run, but lately he's been talking about nobody works harder than him, nobody diets better than him, nobody looks like him, nobody performs like him. So he's kind of transitioning into that self-gratifying kind of heel.
Cool.
And nobody wants to look like him either.
Hey, I'm just saying, as somebody that's carrying about 60 extra pounds, I wouldn't mind having a six-pack like Jinder, okay? I'm just saying. I wouldn't mind.
Have you seen the back knee on him, though?
Hey, some of us are greasy people, alright? I'm just saying, back knee's a very real thing when you become a professional wrestler. Just saying. Now, what else from SmackDown has impressed you? What else stood out other than Charlotte and Jinder getting potential title opportunities?
Baron Corbin, once again.
You seem to have a thing for Baron Corbin there, Jaime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I pretty much witnessed his improvement from his days in NXT as just a purely just a big guy hitting hard, from now being able to hang with the likes of high flyers such as Sami Zayn and AJ Styles like last week, and once again AJ Styles this week. So I pretty much witnessed his growth. That's why I'm high on him.
Okay, since you brought up AJ Styles, one thing I gotta ask: is he being wasted? Not being in the world title picture.
I think they're trying to give him a fresher face because AJ Styles had a good run, and you wouldn't want to make Super AJ, so you wouldn't want people to suddenly get tired of AJ. So you wouldn't want to see a Super AJ character like what they did with John Cena. It's either that or maybe Vince's influence again of smaller guys not deserving multiple title runs. I don't know which is which, but
well, it's also
in my opinion, that's it.
It's also possible that AJ, being that he made his start in another company, not a lot of guys, you go all the way back to the WCW days, got that huge superstar push, maybe with the exception of Eddie Benoit and Jericho, got that really big, super huge push if they made their careers somewhere else. Alex, let's go to you. What stuck out for you on the Tuesday night edition of SmackDown?
You know, this was a very meh SmackDown. I guess I'd say the number one contenders match, or there was a tag team title match, wasn't there? I feel like there was.
Just plainly a tag team match. I think Primo and Epico.
Yeah, Primo and Epico.
Primo and Epico against, yeah. That tag team match was surprisingly good.
But just like Monday Night Raw felt a lot like a Sunday Night Heat, I was sitting and for the first hour and a half of that show, that felt a lot like a Velocity, didn't it? It felt a lot like I should be, when that show ended, Gene Okerlund should have come on and I'd be watching WWE Confidential, or Monster Trucks, or Roller Jam, or something. That's what it felt like because, I mean, other than, did Jinder just win the number one contendership? I wasn't shocked by anything. I wasn't really entertained by anything. A good promo doesn't come to mind. You know, Bray and Randy, they're gonna be something special at that House of Horrors match. At least I hope it is. But I'm over it. You know, now that they're on different brands, I'm done with Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. Move on. And I know they're waiting for the payoff at Payback with a special House of Horrors match, which I really hope is not more CG.
What even is the House of Horrors match? Have they defined any rules?
No.
Not yet.
I just hope
so
it's not
going to be maggots all over the mat again. Right?
Yeah, I'm praying it's not maggots or cockroaches because I was a few beers into WrestleMania when that happened, and I was almost a few beers out of WrestleMania when that happened because that was terrible. And I really hope it's not more of that. You know, maybe it'll be in a haunted house. You know, maybe he fights a clown. Maybe we'll get some cross promotion with the movie It. One can only hope. Tim Curry, may you rest in peace. One can only hope, but I pray that it's not more CGI bullcrap that nobody's really going to understand, get, or care about. But that's just my 2 cents. There actually has been a rumor that the WWE Championship will not be on the line for that match. Either of you guys heard about that?
I've heard that, and, actually, it makes sense, because why would Shane and Daniel Bryan let their title possibly go to Raw and end up without a world title?
That's true, with the only consolation being that they could get the Intercontinental title, or they could get the U.S. title, or they could get both, but they could lose both too, and Raw could have all the gold, and you'd be left with a women's champion of Naomi who glows in the dark, and a tag team championship of who the hell cares. So that could be the position we're in. But guys, we are right at the halfway point of this podcast. Normally we stop here and we take the time to let everybody know what's going on in our personal lives. Let's start off with the fresh face. Alex, tell the people where they can find you on the internet, social media. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, you can find me on Twitter, at officialunfunny, on YouTube as the Unfunny Comedian. Let's see, what have I been doing recently? I've been ranting on Twitter about how horrible the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why is.
And that's something we definitely agree on. Maybe we'll do a special show just on how terrible entertainment's coming and how it deals with wrestling. Jaime, let's jump over to you. You mentioned last week you're working on a pretty massive piece, and you're working with a few other people on it, about what could have been the potential of wrestling. And we're going to actually talk about a few of the guys that you're going to be mentioning in that piece. What else do you got? What other irons do you have in the fire?
Well, I got Rene Dupree, I got Mark Jindrak, and I already mentioned Muhammad Hassan.
Okay. Well,
Especially Rene Dupree. He's one of these guys who was patriotic French, but never moved past the gimmick. So that's I believe that's what wasted his potential.
right.
His
And
upside.
we're gonna get to a few of those in a second, but first let me give you a little stuff about me. As you know, my name is Everkeen. You can find me on Twitter at CLandCS. That is the official Twitter page of the podcast. You can also find the podcast on Facebook at Caps Locks and Chair Shots. And you can find my work on realsport101.com. You go to the wrestling section. I am all over that. You can find my Impact Wrestling recaps. I also did Raw and SmackDown this week. And you can find some of those lesser-known stories you don't know about wrestling that I just happen to cover. So give me a shout-out wherever you can find me and let me know what you think. Now, back to what Jaime was doing. One person you may be forgetting about. Let's talk about Awesome Kong. Okay? She was at the height of her diva run, contending for a Divas Championship. Got pregnant. Haven't seen her since. What did you think was the potential for Awesome Kong, who was clearly the monster of the Divas division at the time?
Well, during that time, if you remember, the landscape of the Divas division was different. Like, they'd hire models, they'd put the Divas in gimmick matches, and if it's a regular singles match, it's usually just about a minute or two, I guess. So it was a different landscape back then. But you see, I don't think they're going to sign Awesome Kong anymore now that they have Nia Jax. But Awesome Kong, a good performer in the ring, as we have seen on TNA prior to debuting in the WWE as Karma. So she could have been good, but it wasn't just, she was signed at the wrong time. That's my opinion.
I completely agree with you on that. Alex, do you have anybody that was underutilized, somebody that should be higher, maybe even somebody on the current roster?
Several people come to mind. Sami Zayn, Ty Dillinger. Just on the current roster, there's Rene Dupree. He could have been the top-level heel, I think, but never really got there. Stevie Richards, I guess, probably could have been higher.
Excellent pick, Stevie Richards. Somebody who was a great worker, totally underutilized. And somebody else that falls in the same time frame, in the same companies at the same time, Al Snow. Al Snow was a tremendous wrestler.
Yeah, Al Snow was awesome, but he could never get over being comedy, you know?
Well, that was the thing. He tried being a serious wrestler, completely flaked on it, so they give him a mannequin head, and he was known as a nut job the rest of the time. Although, going through 2000, I'm watching all the Raws in chronological order. Head cheese. Al Snow, the Lethal Weapon Steve Blackman, their tag team may have been some of the funniest stuff I have ever seen. You know, Al Snow with the head, Steve Blackman wearing a cheese head, and it was definitely something I highly recommend. Now, Jaime, you said Mark Jindrak. What I'm going to ask you both a trivia question. This is more for Alex to see if he's going to stick around. Alex, what faction was Mark Jindrak a part of, but only briefly? He was replaced.
I have no idea.
Jaime, you got this one?
Yeah. Evolution.
Damn straight. They actually went as far as making promo packages and videos with Mark Jindrak in Batista's role. Jindrak gets hurt, in comes Batista, Jindrak goes away. But Mark Jindrak was almost Dave Batista, while Batista was still schlepping for Brother Devon as Brother Dave, and basically just Batista bombing everybody.
Well, Mark Jindrak admitted in an interview later on in his career, when he was already doing well as Marco Corleone in Mexico, he admitted that it's immaturity on his part. Like, he was like a Randy Orton without the backup. Like, you see, Randy Orton is Randy Orton. He has his dad to back him up, but Jindrak did not have that. So he admitted that he and Orton were like the douchebags of the locker room back then. So he kind of rubbed Triple H the wrong way. So, you know, Triple H's influence with creative, so that's what kind of messed it up for him. And that's the start of his push down the card. See, he was paired with Garrison Cade. Nothing happened, not even at... Well, he had a tag team title shot, but they just served as fillers for, you know, that tag team title match.
Well,
they weren't really anything of significance. Cade did better with Trevor Murdoch, and Mark Jindrak was pushed down the card till he got drafted to SmackDown, which did nothing for him as well.
Well, you got to remember the landscape at the time. You're looking at 2003, 2004 Raw and SmackDown. It was pretty much John Cena's rise, Kurt Angle's rise, you know, JBL, and everybody else. You had everybody else that was just kind of filling their way in. Evolution came along, and they were on Raw, you know, and Cena and Edge and everybody else. And then it was 5 or 6 big stars, but there was nothing behind them. Everybody else just kind of puddled around in the middle, just, yeah, hey, you're great, awesome. That was an okay match, but we're really here to see, you know, Cena call Lita a promiscuous lady, just with more of a vernacular. Another person I want to talk about, if you're going to bring up a missed opportunity, and this is somebody that I just covered in a piece, which hopefully will be released soon, Mike Awesome. Now, you look at what Mike Awesome did with ECW. Mike Awesome was the ECW champion, huge star with ECW, was known around the world, did a lot of stuff in Japan, did a lot of stuff in Mexico, and then due to a pay dispute with Paul Heyman, up and leaves as the ECW championship and appears on Monday Nitro. It took a WWE contracted superstar in Taz to go to an ECW house show in Indianapolis to defeat a WCW contracted star in Mike Awesome to win the ECW championship and thusly turn it right back over to Tommy Dreamer, who won his first ECW championship. Awesome goes to WCW. He's the fat chick Thriller. He's that 70s guy. He was completely wasted. Big guy with talent, smart, knew the business, was wasted schlepping to women that have maybe 300 pounds around him. You know, he comes into the WWE on the Invasion angle, completely wasted, made a joke out of him. Then he just up and retires. He had the potential of being something great in WCW, coming to the WWE, being that Booker T kind of character, and was literally wasted because of the problems he caused when he left ECW. Jaime, what are your thoughts?
Well, I wasn't following ECW, to be honest, but I tried to read about Mike Awesome, and everything you say is right. So I searched YouTube for old videos and tried to follow certain storylines. I was not able to really follow in a straight line kind of manner like I did with WCW.
Well, that in large part is because of what ECW was. ECW was, especially toward the end of 2000, beginning of 2001, you never really were kind of sure if ECW was going to be there or not, especially when they got replaced on TNN by the WWE. Well, it might have been F at the time. I'm not sure if they had thusly changed over, but they basically got kicked off of TNN and replaced with Monday Night Raw. And it was pretty much the nail in the coffin for ECW. Alex, Mike Awesome, Wasted talent or got what he deserved?
It's probably somewhere in the middle. He didn't have the potential to really be a true main eventer. He was probably too small to be a real big guy, but he definitely had the potential to be a solid upper mid-carder, I feel.
I mean, you say he was too small. I don't see how 6'8's too small, but that's...
Well, I mean, height-wise, sure, but stature-wise,
I mean, he was a big guy, and the Awesome Bomb was truly one of the more higher impact special moves in ECW, and that's saying a lot given that, you got the Dudley Death Drop and the 5-star Frog Splash and, whatever Sabu decided to put you asleep with, and, the stuff that Terry Funk and Mick Foley did.
Sure.
So, there's another name we could talk about, Mick freaking Foley. Is he a waste of talent? 3-time WWE champion, first ever hardcore champion.
No, Mick Foley was not a wasted talent. Mick Foley was used exactly as he should have been.
I disagree. I think he should have been an 9-time champion because he won those 3 titles. He had the titles less than 6 months combined. He won them all within about a year and a half of one another. And when he wasn't winning the title, he was schlepping to the Rock. He was a comedic act. He was pulling a sock out of his pants instead of being the hardcore icon that he built his career around.
That's not really fair, because without Mick Foley, Triple H would have never gotten as popular as he did, certainly. Without Mick Foley, The Rock wouldn't have had quite as many iconic moments. Mick Foley was... he wasn't always in the title picture, but not everyone needs to be in the title picture all the time. Daniel Bryan did not always need to have the big gold belt or whatever. The belt should be used to get guys over when they're on the precipice of being stars, not put on big stars.
Yeah, I guess. I still would like to have seen him be more than a 3-time champion. If The Rock can hold it, 8, 9 times, why couldn't Mick Foley have had it 5 or 6? Why does Triple H have to be a 12-time WWE champion when Mick Foley was only 3?
Well, I mean, the guys who have the really large number of title reigns are just, that's just excessive anyway.
I completely disagree. Jaime, what are your thoughts on Mick Foley?
Well, I agree with Alex with for Mick Foley to get those kinds of title reigns, he doesn't really have to hold that many titles like, the Triple H's or the Rocks. It's pretty much fair. The guy can work, the guy can put on a good story in a match, and mic-wise, but maybe just another factor was that was the time when Vince was very high on muscular guys, and Mick wasn't that guy.
Right, and it's fair to point out that without Mick having the title, would we have even seen Kevin Owens with the title? Because you can draw several parallels between Mick Foley and Kevin Owens, both in appearance and kind of their demeanor, their ways they work. Kevin Owens may be Mick Foley 2.0 with less of a sense of humor. Although some of the stuff he did with Jericho last year. Now, let's move on. We have one wrestling company we have not covered. That's Impact. Impact was last night, and it was a huge show. They built it for 3 titles, but if you listen to Rockstar Spud, there was actually 4 titles on the line. The first one was the Tag Team Championship, where LAX defeated 2 guys I've never heard of in a pretty convincing match. Maybe what was more noteworthy than the actual match was what happened afterwards when Decay came out and a battle was on. Abyss looked strong. Crazy Steve earned his nickname. Rosemary and Diamante are something that going forward could be pretty terrific. It set up LAX taking on Decay next week for the tag team titles in a street fight. Jaime, LAX, they said they were out for a Latino power grab. Where do you think this leads them? Do they retain their titles?
For the first time in a long time, Decay's gonna be the underdogs. So I guess Decay's gonna put up a good fight, but they're trying to make LAX look strong. So definitely LAX is going over. But expect Decay to put a fight. I think they're the baby faces for this feud. It's just that LAX is getting more over with the fans, I think.
Well, LAX has always been over with the fans, chants that are mimicable, I guess. They got the established stars in Conan and Homicide. They got an up-and-coming tag team with Ortiz and Santana, and they got a pretty good-looking woman in Diamante. Speaking of Diamante, Alex, it looks like the way that her and Rosemary went after each other in that first segment, and the way that Rosemary defeated ODB in her title match, that leaves the door open for Diamante to challenge Rosemary. Do you see that happening?
I do. I think certainly Diamante is going to challenge Rosemary. I think Rosemary's not going to lose the title anytime soon. I think they're going to build the women's division around her. Well,
she has had the title since December, and she had the match pretty much taken to her by ODB. ODB controlled a lot of that match in typical ODB fashion. There was a lot of butt slapping. She told Earl to kiss her ass. It was a fun, entertaining match, but in the end, Rosemary still won. If ODB, who ran the Knockouts Gauntlet, was it 2 weeks ago, can't beat Rosemary, who's going to? Jaime, do you have any thoughts about who could possibly put an end to Rosemary's Knockout Championship reign?
I think Diamante. Like, if Diamante wins the championship from Rosemary after a hard-fought battle, then, or maybe through dirty means like, interference from her stablemates, the LAX. So I think that's going to set up an underdog story for a returning Gail Kim. I think Gail Kim's not over.
That definitely sounds like something I would be willing to watch. Now, we had something a little goofy go on. The Impact World Championship was defended as the Cowboy James Storm and Bobby Lashley squared off. A world title was not in the main event. It was the second to last match to go on, thanks in large part to a returning Sanjay Dutt, but we'll get to him here in a second. Before that match went on, we saw a promo from Alberto El Patron, and it's still weird not calling him Del Rio, where he basically said in as much Spanish as I know, and that's very little. Spanish 1 for 4 years doesn't do you very much. Basically said he's going to kick Bobby Lashley in the hindquarters and he's going to take what's rightfully his title. And then you have Magnus, who apparently has returned and is the Global Force Wrestling World Champion, said he's got a golden ticket. And I thought very much of Willy Wonka. I thought he was going to break into song like Charlie Bucket. But he's got a golden ticket to face Lashley. Cowboy James Storm is obviously not in the title picture no more. Where does that leave the World Championship?
If Magnus is automatically in the title picture and you have El Patron versus Lashley, I think El Patron's going to get his vindicating title win after this rematch. Remember, he initially had to surrender it. Then that sets up a feud with El Patron and Magnus while Lashley focuses on MMA. I think he has an upcoming fight, so makes sense from that point of view.
Well, we do have Slammiversary coming up here shortly, Alex. Where do you see it going? Who gets the next title shot? Is it Del Rio? Is it Magnus? Is it both?
Yeah, I could see them setting up a triple threat at Slammiversary, as TNA has always loved to do, since they seem to think triple threats sell more tickets. But I could also see them taking the title off Lashley for his Bellator bout, which isn't that for the Bellator Heavyweight Championship?
Not sure.
Well, I think that might be for the Bellator Heavyweight Championship, and if that's the case, then as soon as he's done with that, he's coming back and taking back the TNA title, I'd imagine.
Okay, all right. The other big storyline to come out of that match, we saw Ethan Carter III. Bruce Pritchard gave him a verbal tongue lashing last week. Basically said, you need to go look in the mirror and you need to find out who Ethan Carter III is, because not only did you quit in that match, you quit on yourself. So he comes out, we see Josh Matthews again. See, it seemed like last night was all about people coming back, people coming in, and titles on the line. Josh Matthews is back because he went away for a week, which makes sense. Ethan Carter III stops Josh Matthews from interfering with a beer bottle. The referee gets knocked down. James Storm hits 2 last calls. Brian Hebner, being the girl that he is, doesn't get back up. What's a cowboy to do when he's got the match won? Why not go out and have a beer? So he takes a beer off of in front of the Pope, Drinks it, beer bottle in his hand in the ring. He's going to hit Lashley with it. Ref's already down. What's it matter? Enter EC3. Beer bottle, upside James Storm's head. Now we got a feud between the Cowboy and Ethan Carter III, who apparently is a heel again. Lashley wins his match, he retains his title. Where does that leave Ethan Carter III and James Storm?
I would imagine that this sets up for a match at Slammiversary between the two. It's weird to me that they're going with a heel EC3 because it seems to me like the more logical way to take this would be to turn. Well, why'd they turn James Storm face in the first place? They should have kept him with the DCC. Seems to me like they're killing off all of Billy Corgan's creations, but that's a different thing entirely.
Well, you know how Jeff Jarrett and Billy Corgan fit together and don't fit together, so it may not be a bad thing that all gets scrapped. But James Storm is a babyface. You saw the pop he got last night. Not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea to have him as a face, no, but it's like that face turn was way too soon after the heel turn.
Yeah, I agree with you there. He's going to get into a Big Show-esque pattern where 1 week he's good, 1 week he's bad, 1 week he's good, 1 week he's bad. Jaime, EC3, you spoke about him last week. Let's hear your thoughts. Is a heel EC3 better this week than last?
Because a heel EC3 is, right now the heel EC3 is different from the heel EC3 that debuted on Impact as Dixie Carter's nephew. Like, before it was a spoiled type of heel, now he's a desperate type of heel. Like, he's going to do anything to get what he wants instead of just feeding on the spoils in order to get what he wants. So this is a different kind of EC3 heel, so pretty much it's going to be pretty much an interesting next few weeks for Impact. As for James Storm, I think him as a babyface because it's going to be a veteran's last hurrah for a title reign, so it's going to be a good backstory.
Speaking of veterans, we saw 2.5 of them return last night, not counting Josh Matthews. Sanjay Dutt comes in, affects the X Division Championship match, says he wants it to be a triple threat, says it should be the main event. Bruce Pritchard says, hey, that's a great idea, it's going to be the main event. But we're also going to have 3 more people. Yay, so now we have 6 men, and honestly, I feel a little bad for Andrew Everett. Bruce Pritchard announces later in the show, we're going to see Suicide, which I honestly think is only added into these matches because he was literally created on a video game and became a wrestler. Then they added Desmond Xavier, is that what his name is?
Yeah, Desmond Xavier.
Yeah, Desmond Xavier.
He was added. And then we get told by Dirty Dutch Mantel, the 6th guy's going to be a surprise. Everybody's thinking, could we see, Shark Boy? Could we see somebody that we haven't seen before? Lo and behold, Slow Key. So now we got a 6-man X Division Championship match. For one, Alex, I'm going to ask you this. Would you have rather it been an Ultimate X Division match?
Yeah.
Short, sweet, to the point. Dig it. Jaime, your thoughts. Were 6 men too many people to compete for that championship?
But since it's not an Ultimate X Division match, yes, it's too much for a 6-pack challenge for the belt, especially given that not everyone was able to get their moment because they're trying to cram it up in a short amount of time. So the amount of time allotted for the match was not enough for 6 men to compete for it.
Right, and actually there was a 7th competitor in that match, and that was the mouse over the left eye of Sanjay Dutt. Did either of you guys happen to see how big that thing got?
I did not pay any attention to that, but now that you've pointed it out, I'm not going to be able to not notice that now, so thanks.
Jaime, what about you? Did you happen to see the growth that was coming out of the face of Sanjay Dutt?
Yeah, the moment I saw it, I said it's over. He can't see from one eye, so how is he going to be able to pull up those high-flying maneuvers?
And that's definitely what has made the X Division something special. There was a newcomer in that match, Desmond Xavier. He looked fantastic, doing a lot of what Shelton Benjamin was known to be doing, where he was getting flipped, landing on his feet. He was doing a flip, missing, landing on his feet. He's definitely not the gold standard, but he was somebody that looked like he very much belonged in the X Division. Jaime, what do you know about Desmond Xavier?
Well, I haven't looked him up yet, but pretty much I'm going to know more about him as the weeks come, as long as they put him on TV every week. But I guess he is going to be, because of how he performed.
Yeah, he definitely earned his spot on TV. We saw Sanjay Dutt come in. We saw Loki come in. We even saw Hornswoggle come in. Josh Matthews came back. What was the biggest return to come back in that show last week?
I'm going to have to say Loki, just from a pure star power perspective. Because, obviously he had that brief run in WWE as Cable. That probably gives him just a little bit more star power, other than obviously Hornswoggle. But
I was going to say, I said the biggest return, and it might have come from the littlest guy, and that was Hornswoggle. Loved seeing Horny back on TV. Jaime, Loki is now the X Division champion. What does that mean for Impact going forward? Will we keep seeing Sanjay Dutt? What goes on with Trevor Lee and Andrew Everett? Where does this leave Shane Helms? Where do we go from here with the X Division?
For Trevor Lee and Andrew Everett, I see them feuding with higher stakes, like ladder match per se. But Loki has the title, so it's not logical to put them in a ladder match just yet. But I see more come from the two, especially with Shane Helms on the side. I really hope Andrew Everett gets a real one-on-one match with Shane Helms, put him out of the way, then go to Trevor Lee. As for Loki, I'm kind of bothered with what he's wearing. He performs in the ring wearing that Hitman kind of attire, so didn't it hamper what he could do inside the ring?
Honestly, it kind of looked like he was ripping off Cesaro. It looked exactly like what Cesaro wears.
Like a suit-wearing wrestler, that's Cesaro. Why are you wearing a suit?
Yeah, exactly.
He wrestled on it.
One last thing before we wrap up Impact. The Impact Grand Championship. Moose defended it in Manitoba, Canada, which seems like a perfect place for a guy named Moose to wrestle. In comes Chris Adonis, who apparently locked in the Adonis lock with a broken arm, if you believe what has been said. Moose challenges Adonis for the Grand Championship next week. Adonis comes out, you broke my arm, Here's somebody to come in. Now we see Davey Richards. Will we see Eddie Edwards come into that match? Will we see the Grand Championship actually be a good match? Will Chris Adonis interfere? Are the days numbered for Moose being the Grand Champion?
Will Eddie Edwards interfere? Probably. That's probably going to last through to Slammiversary, that feud. Will the match be good? No, because the Grand Championship stipulations are terrible and stupid. But Chris Adonis is a fine worker, I suppose, and a match between him and Moose is just like a straight-up two hosses battling it out. Could be kind of fun.
Okay. Now, where does this leave Cody Rhodes? Cody Rhodes, up until a couple of weeks ago, was challenging Moose for the Grand Championship. No mention of him. He wasn't in the signature. A signature which they still have AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. There's Bobby Roode. All still in the intro to the show. No Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes wasn't even mentioned on TV. His wife wasn't mentioned on TV. 2 weeks in a row. So where does that leave Cody Rhodes in Impact Wrestling?
Well, I'm not sure about the real status of it. Isn't he holding that GFW, what do you call that title?
I think it's something similar. Impact? Yeah, I think it's something similar to the...
It's the GFW Next Gen Championship.
So what is that, like the X Division?
Yeah, it's basically the X Division Championship without the X Division name.
And I think he's focusing more on the Bullet Club, being a member of the Bullet Club, the American Nightmare. So that's why I think they put other guys in front of Moose, such as Davey Richards and Chris Adonis, to give Rhodes that time to focus more on being a Bullet Club member than, getting his own pursuits.
Okay. Now that leaves us with the one thing that almost nobody is talking about. Global Force Wrestling, co-created by Karen Jarrett and Jeff Jarrett, is going to merge with Impact. That's why Magnus, the GFW World Champion, is going to go after Bobby Lashley. Will we see Cody Rhodes, the Next Gen Champion, go after, I guess, Moose or Loki? Will we see They already mentioned Sienna is going to face off against the GFW Women's Championship, whoever that may be. The Tag Team Championship, that's going to be brought over. Will we see something along the lines of when WCW and ECW invaded, where we're going to see the titles merged together? We're not going to see Impact have another show, but will we see title unifications?
They're either going to do title unifications, and if that's what they're doing, then that's a bit pointless because no one cares about GFW. But I could also see them 100%. I could see Anthem deciding, like, hey, we need more wrestling on our stupid Fight Network app, so let's do a GFW show.
Well, they're merging. GFW's going away. And you say nobody cares about them. The belts look pretty fantastic.
The belts do look great.
Jaime, last thought. Where do you see the merger between GFW and Impact going?
Well, let's say these champions from GFW challenge the Impact champions, and if they win, then the belts are gone. I don't see them carrying 2 belts, and they already did an invasion angle in the past, so I doubt they're going to repeat that again. So it's either these GFW champions win and get the belt and throw out the belt they're currently holding for GFW. I think that's the more possible thing to happen for them.
All right. That brings us to the very end of episode 3 of the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast. Just a reminder, if you like what you hear, you can find us on YouTube. Search for Caps Locks and Chair Shots. Search my name, search Jaime's name. You can find us. You can even search Bino Machino and find a link to our YouTube account. You can also find us on SoundCloud. Just search the Caps Locks and Chair Shots name. You can find us on there. Hopefully soon we're coming to iTunes. Hopefully soon we can get on Google Play. It's just a matter of how willing a 2012 HP computer is going to work with me. That being said, Alex, tell people where they can find you on Twitter.
My Twitter is @officialunfunny.
And Jaime, where can the people find you on social media if they want to follow the muscle of the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast?
Twitter, Instagram, it's @JaimeFRTD.
And now say the last 4 letters again.
FRTD.
There you go. And as always, you can find me on RealSport101.com in the wrestling section, as also with Jaime, who does the 205 Live previews. And you can find me on Twitter at CLandCS. That's the official Twitter account for the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast. Now, as we said before, we should have the real Danny D next week. He is appealing his 1-week suspension. He will go before a disciplinary board where he has to apologize. If not, we will see Jaime back with us once again. Alex is coming back next week as well. So, for all of us here at the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast, we would also like to extend our deepest and heartfelt sympathies to the Anoy family for the death of Rosie. And we would like to wish Bino good luck and hope to hear from you soon, buddy. But as always, if you're not down with the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast, we got 2 words for you. Keep listening.